Hi, I'm Alicia and welcome to the Mintay Papers YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing a pretty mini album that I created using the Mintay Papers Florabella collection. This is one of my favorite collections. I keep coming back to using this for different projects, and today I am using one of the new Mintay Chippies albums. It's a love heart shaped album, and I combine the album and the Florabella papers together to create this. And the pictures are of my niece Molly and her horse that they took in her backyard. So if you'd like to pull up a chair and let's get creating together, I'll show you exactly how I created this project. So this was the album that I started with. It's the love heart shaped album, and I'm starting with the Florabella papers. The first thing that I do is I choose the part of the papers that I would like for my album pages, and I simply trace around the edge of the love heart with a pencil, and then I cut those out so you can fit about 2 love hearts onto each of your 12 by 12 scrapbook papers. And so I'm just tracing some more love hearts now onto this next piece of paper and cutting that out with my scissors. The papers are really beautiful. There's so many gorgeous designs on the papers that you really don't have to do a lot of embellishing work in this album because the papers do a lot of the work for you. So just cutting around those edges. I think that is 6 love hearts so far, but I need some more. I've gone for this page here, which is a beautiful wreath shaped page. Colors in this collection are very subtle colors, very soft colors. I'm picking up the silver in the papers and this sort of apricot pink color in the papers. I'm starting to glue down the papers onto both sides of the love heart now. So I'm just using the liquid glue and I'm just sticking that down. If for any reason that my love hearts are just a little bit too big, I'm just trimming off any excess with a pair of scissors to just cut off any excess edges. Just need another couple of love hearts. I think I used 10 love hearts altogether. There's quite a few pages in the album. The front cover though, I didn't need to use paper for the front cover because I'm going to just ink that and just stick it on top of one of the other love hearts. Just grabbing another love heart page. It's quite quick and easy to fill up the pages because the papers are quite decorative and the love heart shape is very interesting and unique. So I don't actually layer anything on to the base pages except for the photo and then my embellishments around the photo. So these base pages are basically as they are. I've chosen a silver ink pad because I'm focusing on the colors silver and white and so that apricot pink color. So I've chosen this Hazelcraft silver ink pad that I'm inking all of the edges of the album, and I'm also inking the front of the album. You could paint this if you wanted to, the filigree heart, but I'm just going to use my ink pad Just to let you know though that by the end of this project, this ink pad was ready for the bin. So I wouldn't use your best ink pad on it, just grab a fairly inexpensive ink pad that you can use for the purpose of this project. Because the wood is quite rough, the chipboard is sort of rough on my ink pad, so by the end of the project, the ink pad was fairly well wrecked just from roughing up along all the edges. But it was just an old ink pad that I had anyway, so I wasn't too worried that it was destroyed. And I really liked the effect that it gave to the edges of my project, and it was soft. It's a soft color. It's also quick drying. You don't have to wait for any drying. Like if you painted it, then you'd have to wait a long time for each of those pages to dry, but with the ink pad it's dry almost immediately. I'm just gluing that filigree love heart down onto the front cover of the album now. You can see how pretty it is. Yeah, it's really pretty. I'll tell you a little story about my photos. My beautiful sister, she has 3 children. They all have their own horses. They live on a farm, so they're blessed to have enough room to have their own horses. And when I saw the Florabella collection for the first time and I saw the horses in the photograph, in the papers, I really wanted to make an album with horse photos, because I know a lot of people have horses, but there's not always papers that suit horse photos. So my sister was very kind and she took my niece out into the paddock and they took some photos of my niece and her horse, and so this is the result of that little photo shoot that they had, and these photos are actually perfect for this paper collection. The reason being is because I actually sent a photo of the collection to them, and so my niece wore a dress that suited the papers, so it was pretty well orchestrated, and her pony actually is the same color as the pony in the papers, so it all tied in really nicely. But I'm actually making this album for my niece as a little gift to her as well. It's just a little snapshot in time of her at this age with her horse. So what I'm doing is, with the photos, I'm using the frames from the number 6 page in the 12 by 12 Florabella collection. I printed my photos out as 3 by 4s. I used the Becky Higgins Project Life app to get 2 4 by 6 photos reduced down onto a 3 by 4 photograph, and then I printed them at home on my Canon Selfie. There was not a lot of photos. It was, I don't know, maybe about 12 photos altogether, just enough, the right amount. And I just went through and picked the best ones and the ones that fitted in the frames the best. I really like the number 6 page for framing photographs. It just makes the whole process of scrapbooking so easy. So what I'm doing here is I'm just cutting out the middle of the frames, finding the perfect photo for each frame, gluing the frame onto the photo, and then I trim the photos around the frame. So I just use a pair of sharp scissors and I just cut the edges. Once the frame's glued down onto the photo and it's dry, just cut the edges off. And then my photos are ready to use. My only tip is to choose photos that are fairly not too close up, because the frames are so small you can't fit like a really close up photo into a frame. For this album, I'm just going to use a ribbon to bind the album in one position, so I'm just making a hole in the frames, pages of the album. This is just using a really sharp tool, and I'm just making sure that I get the hole in exactly the same spot on each of the pages. Once the hole is in each of those album pages, I'm just pushing a ribbon through the hole. This can be a little bit tricky, but you just got to use that sharp pointy tool again to push the ribbon through. You could use an album ring if you wanted to instead of a ribbon, but I like the ribbon because it's the same color as the silver theme of my album. My photos are ready to go and my album is now ready to go, so I can begin scrapbooking my photos. I'm using these little flowers that match the color of the papers really well, and they're quite flat. I've also fussy cut all of the elements from the back of the front cover at a previous time, so I have those elements ready to go so that I can build up my pages. I like to cut my big floral clusters in half so that they can go further, and I can have little bits of floral clusters on one side and little bits on the other. I'm using some more of that crinkly silver ribbon throughout my album to add some embellishment to the album. It's a good filler and it's pretty. I'm also going to be using cheesecloth throughout the album to soften and give that romantic sort of feel, and I'm going to use some white twine tied up into bows throughout the album for my little clusters that I'm going to make. I'm using some old recycled chipboard scraps that I'm just going to use to elevate the pieces and the elements on my layouts so that they are elevated from the base of the album. Plenty of cheesecloth layers underneath my paper layers. I'm just doubling up the layer on the middle of that photo so that the photo will sit higher than the floral clusters. I've got my silver bow and my white twine and my flower. I'm going to have some more cheesecloth. I use quite a lot of cheesecloth in this album. Just pop my little petals on. I'm going to use a flat back pearl for the center of my flower. I'm going to use some of that floral cluster there to fill in that corner of the love heart above my flower. And make another little floral cluster down the bottom here on the bottom of the frame. I found a little chipboard sentiment that I'm going to use as a title for my album, and because it's the word love, that's sort of expressing the love between a girl and her horse. However, this could easily become a wedding album, and instead of the horse photos you could just put in some beautiful wedding photos. This is the ink, the same ink that I'm going to ink that chipboard with to just take the wood sort of look off it a little bit and add a bit more of a silver touch. And I'm just building up my little floral cluster there with some silver ribbon and the twine and then the flower, and I'll finish that with another flat back pearl. And then I'll just stick my little love sign on the side here of the frame. And then that is pretty much my front cover done. This album is quite simple. I haven't gone to a huge amount of time in creating it. It's a fairly simple album to create. The hardest bit is probably just the layering of the little embellishments, the elements that you cut. I'm actually not going to put a photo on the back of the album pages. I'm just going to leave those completely blank, and I'm only going to put photos on the front of each album page. That's just a personal choice. You could easily add more into that if you liked. So I'm going to follow the same design idea for each page. So photograph in the middle, fussy cut elements coming out from underneath the photo with cheesecloth and some ribbon, maybe a flower or two or some lace. So this page is starting to take shape now. I'm going to begin gluing some of these bits down. I've got the easel, I've got some floral clusters and leaves, I've got some cheesecloth, then I've got my photo, putting on some floral clusters down the bottom, and pop my photo in the middle there. Thinking about a flower and ribbon, maybe at the top here on the top right hand corner of my photograph. I like these little padlock lace, what are these little jewelry padlocks or lockets, I think you call them. Might add one of those in. There's my little flower in there. And that's that page done. So I'm not overthinking the pages, I'm trying not to. So I'm moving on to my next page now, and I've chosen my center photograph. I've chosen a horse picture. I'm cutting some cheesecloth, mounting my photograph onto some chipboard, and I'm going to mount my horse onto some chipboard. I've picked some floral elements that I'm going to add in. I've also forgotten about my beautiful lace. This is my favorite lace, and I wanted to add this lace into this album because it matches my color scheme of sort of the apricot pink color, white and grey, silver. So I've dug out that lace, and that's going to help me fill in my spaces. Looking for another bit of a floral cluster that can go up there in that top section opposite the horse. We've got all those scraps that we cut the hearts from, so you'll find that there's lots of little scraps in those pictures. There's flowers and floral embellishments and things you can cut out. So if you're looking for more little bits and pieces, just go to your scraps, cut out some little bits, and then you can use that to decorate your pages. Pop that all in. That's looking really pretty. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Here's our photograph. I wanted to use these boots. My nieces and my sister wear these sort of boots around, so I thought that was very cute that they were in this collection. Just looking for more. I've sort of run out of the floral clusters, so I've had to cut more from the scraps that we cut the love hearts out of. putting that in behind the photo. I'm happy with my photo there in the middle. I'm going to add some lace and a bow. The lace and the bow before, as I said, are really good fillers of space. There's a little bit of that twine. I'm going in with a little bit more cheesecloth there underneath the ribbon, and some more leaves and flowers underneath my frame, some more cheesecloth. I like that lantern that I cut out, so I'm going to put that on there. That sort of matches in with the brown on the boots. I'm going to add a little bit of lace to it. Looking for something for this top corner. Maybe some flowers just to add in there. I think that's that page done. Moving on to the next page. I've got this lovely photo. I'm going to use the big horse in this one. It's a beautiful image of a horse. I've got the hat. I like the hat in this collection as well. It matches in with the photographs that I'm using. I'm just cutting another flower out of those scraps of paper that we had from before. I'm just looking for something that I can fill in that space with. Gluing that photo down, finding that spot for the hat. Maybe a ribbon at the bottom. And some twine and some lace. Okay, it's looking good. We're getting there. Maybe I'll put a little flat back pearl in there on top of that twine bow. This page now. I think this is our last page. The photo in, we've got the clock, we've got a notebook here that we haven't used yet. Some little flowers. Add in around some cheesecloth. Flowers are really cute. Thinking about another little padlock. I'll put the ribbon through it this time. Just going to glue that down there at the bottom with some lace. A little bit of cheesecloth at the top with a little flower. I'm looking for another flower that I can cut. I need some more flowers and leaves to fill in that space at the top. Put that in there. I need to loosen the ribbon because once you start embellishing, the pages get sort of heavier. Just going to add a little bit of lace into that so that that hangs down. Just loosen that up a bit more so that it's nice and easy to turn. So now this is our completed album. I am really happy with how this turned out. I just love the color scheme. I love that silver, that soft apricot pink and white all together. It's very soft, it's very romantic. It'd be perfect for a wedding. The silver on the edges of the album came up really well. The shape of the album, the love heart shape has been really easy to work with. The photos actually worked in perfectly with the colors of this album. I did edit them a little bit to take the saturation out of the color so that they had that silvery feel to them, but I didn't take out all the color. There's still little bits of color in some of them. I really liked I actually have found these papers, the Florabella collection, very easy to work with. This is my third project using these papers. I'm really not sick of them yet at all. I think I could still make a set of cards in these papers. And so that is the album. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. I certainly enjoyed making it. I think I completed this album in only one night, so it wasn't a labor intensive project, but it still looks very pretty and very special, and it looks like a lot of time has been put into the creation of this album, when in fact it was fairly simple to construct. The papers certainly made the process easy, and so did the album base. Also, I think having the right photographs and having the frame papers of the number 6 page to put the photos in, and keeping all of the pages in the same sort of design. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe to the Mintay Papers YouTube channel and get ready for a new video being released every Sunday. I hope you have a lovely crafty day.